You probably know Simon Sinek. Most people know him. He's known for his concept of start with why, and he's produced an awful lot of amazing content that's really made a difference for a lot of people. However, when it comes to values and culture, I think Simon Sinek misses the point. And in this video, I'm going to show you a little outtake of a speech Simon Sinek gave in which he presents his idea of how values should be communicated and what difference they might make. And we're going to dissect this video, look at the flaws in his reasoning, and I'm going to try to give you some recommendations on how you can tackle this whole topic within your company to make your own company more successful and address this whole issue of culture and values in a much, much better way. So stay tuned. Hello, welcome to the Markup Show, the Markup News, excuse me. We're the Markup News here. I'm Mark Poppenborg. Welcome back to another episode, to some more managerial sanity. That's how I would like to refer to this show. Maybe that could be our subline. A refuge for managerial sanity, because there is a lot of insanity out there, and it leads to a lot of dissatisfaction with employees and shareholders, and I want to do something about it. That's what this show is for. And last week I shared an article with you about core values, and I laid out, at least I tried to lay out, why I think that trying to change company culture can be very harmful and cause the opposite of what you set out to achieve, and why even if you have the best intentions, it typically ends badly. And if you haven't watched that video, check it out. It's linked up there, and it might even be helpful to understand today's episode. It's not like a necessary precondition, but it's probably worth watching at some point. And today's story is sourced from a video, not from an article for a change. And I came across this video by introduction of my best friend, the YouTube algorithm, who when I was scrolling through the YouTube app, and I suddenly bumped into a video from Simon Sinek, which is funny because you might remember last week I was referring to Simon Sinek, and I was, accusing him of not understanding culture. And the video that I watched, I think, paid testament to that accusation. And I have deep respect for Simon Sinek. I think he's a great management thinker, and he's obviously very popular. Most people know him. You probably know him. Everyone knows him for the start with why principle. But I would like to explain why I think that he misses a crucial point when we talk about company culture and company values. So let's take this little outtake of his video apart. Let's dissect it and see what's behind it.
So absolutely they should be written down because it makes us more accountable, right? Because somebody can say, we're not doing that. And by the way, please don't write honesty on the wall. Because if you have to write honesty on the wall, you have much bigger problems, right? And we don't write, what values should be written on the wall as verbs. They're things we do. Values are things we do. Like innovation is not a value, right? Honesty is not a value, right? And because they're not actionable. You can't walk into someone's office and say, be more innovative. I don't know what to do. Be more honest. I didn't think I was dishonest, right? But if we write on the board, always tell the truth. Look at the problem from a different angle. Give me something to do. Those are values, because values have to be actionable. They have to be doable. But we write them as these staid nouns on walls and expect people to live our values.
Seriously, Simon? Always tell the truth? Look at the problem from a different angle? I think people are smart enough to translate honesty into always tell the truth. Like if that's the only change companies need to make in order to get this whole culture and value thing right, then they would have got there by now. Like that can't be the problem. Translating nouns into verbs is not a very difficult task, not a big hurdle to take. I think there's a bit more to it, and it's unjust to claim that Simon Sinek is just about translating nouns into verbs. Like he's got a lot more to offer, but he makes the same mistake I spoke about last week, which is he assumes that you can create a desired culture by holding people accountable for living by certain values. He just says, you shouldn't articulate those values in form of nouns, but in the form of verbs. And this again is based on an even deeper assumption, which is that somebody's behavior, so any act, any message, equals the meaning that is understood, and that this meaning is, an objective character. But what I say or do and what meaning gets attributed to this action are two very separate things, like we saw last week, which is why cultures don't emerge as a result of our intentions. So, for example, I can say the truth, but still be accused for lying. Why? Well, because, for example, if a business has a tradition of distrust, then whatever I do might be interpreted as being untruthful, even if I'm telling the truth. Or think of the example I made last week. If you've just come from a workshop in which the core values have been explained and proclaimed, and everyone was meant to, commit to them publicly and swear by them, and everyone did. Everyone said, "Yep, I agree. This is good values. This is what we should thrive towards." And I said that, and everyone else said that. Everyone agreed. And let's assume one of these values is always tell the truth. It's even written as a verb. And now I will even be held accountable for this. So my boss will say, "Mark, I will hold you accountable for telling the truth. That's my duty. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm meant to do." And the next day, my colleague comes around and shares some information with me. Information that he wouldn't typically have shared with me in the past. Something that, he would have withheld in order to benefit himself. Because I've always experienced him as extremely selfish. And now suddenly, he's sharing this information with me. Is his act genuine? Maybe he's only sharing part of the information because he wants to appear as if he's living by the new values. Or maybe he is sharing all the information, but how do I know? And again, culture isn't how people act. It's a result of the meaning that gets attributed to the act, which in itself is influenced by the existing culture in the company, as you can see with this example. So this whole matter of company culture it's deeply circular. It's not linear. It's not how we prefer to think. It's not this whole if this, then that logic. It's circular. And values don't emerge by people trying to live by them. They emerge as something that you could maybe refer to as circular expectations. So if I expect that your attempt to be truthful might not be genuine, then you might anticipate that very expectation that I have, which I then in turn might have already anticipated, which you might have already, and so on. So between all of those, circular expectations and anticipations, an act gets translated into meaning. But neither me nor you are in control of the creation of that meaning. That's why it's called emergent. Now, that's just one of the aspects that I would criticize Simon Sinek for, overlooking that fact. The other one is directed at his accountability statement. And Simon Sinek says, values should be written down because they make us more accountable. And it's true, of course, that a manager can call out his employee for not telling the truth or not looking at a problem from a different angle, or whatever the example was. But he can't do that objectively. And more importantly, does it really make a difference? Does it really make things better? And I don't think it does. In fact, I think it makes things even worse. And I'm going to try to give you a really simple example, a real life example that I've experienced firsthand many times. Imagine you're a sales guy, and imagine your company has given you quarterly targets. And imagine that attached to those targets, you receive a bonus payment. Now, let's assume you've had a good month. Such a good month, you already know you have reached your maximum possible bonus. So even if you sold more stuff, if you acquired more customers, it wouldn't make a difference to you. But the customer requests to just keep coming in. Now you have a real incentive to delay those deals. In fact, I've met a lot of sales guys personally who have agreed discounts with their customers if they delay their order, or if they put it forward if they haven't made that many sales in that period yet. And this is for orders that were certain. They knew they were going to come in. They didn't have to give them a discount. They just gave them a discount to delay the order. He had the order. So if your employer was was dumb enough to give you a low base salary with a big bonus, assuming that you would be more motivated, then it's inevitable that this internal reference, the bonus, will start influencing decisions. And these decisions might be unfavorable for the business, because why give a discount when you don't have to give a discount if the customer is ordering anyway? So you only do those kind of things if there's a secondary reason, which in this case, in this example, is the bonus. Now, in this whole setup, imagine your CFO comes along and he asks you about the discount you gave. Are you going to tell him you gave the discount in order to receive a higher bonus? You should, right? It's part of the company values. Always tell the truth. But it might harm you. So chances are, I think, you won't tell the truth. Or you will, but how does your CFO know whether you are or not? He might sense the whole thing. And what does that do if everyone's anticipating that someone might be telling the truth or they might not be? It fosters distrust. And the values that were written on the wall become more and more cynical. If you have enough of those examples on an ongoing basis, then it starts becoming quite embarrassing to walk past those values. You feel ashamed for them. If you have guests in your company, you stand between the poster with those values and your guest, because you don't want your guest to see those values. You're scared that if he sees those values, he's going to see the difference between the real values that your company is currently living and the values on the wall. So the solution is not to call for values, regardless of them being, announced as nouns or verbs. The solution is to build management practices and organizational structures that don't incentivize people to lie. If you believe in telling the truth and trusting one another, then don't pay people bonuses. Bonuses are the institutionalized expression of distrust. And this is just one example. This is just one of many toxic management practices in companies. So calling for values, but implementing procedures or structures that are an expression of their opposite, that is pure hypocrisy. And that is done all the time. And I can already hear some of you saying, well, that's obvious, Mark. Like, you need to walk the talk. Why would you implement something that is a contradiction to what you believe in? Well, if it's so bloody obvious, why don't we see more of it? I don't see companies that are really well organized, structured in a clever way, and reduce managerial practices to a minimum where they are not needed in order to give people responsibility. I don't see those companies which also have a deeply broken culture. Show me one. I mean, I see complaints in every company. Of course, you will always hear complaints, even in the best environments. But you never see the combination. A really well-organized company that is set up for meeting the demands of a highly dynamic market will in no case be matched with a broken, eroded culture. I haven't seen that. So you don't need to call for values if you have all those structures in place. If you've got a decent organizational structure and you are using managerial practices that match the demand of work, then you don't need to call for values. Why would you need to? Everything's in order. I mean, you could still call for those values. You could write them down, and that might be nice for people because they can appreciate what's already good, but it doesn't make a big difference anymore because you've already done your homework. But if favorable values are absent, which is typically the case when management feels like they should write them down and call them out, if they are absent, then the reason for their absence isn't that they haven't been written down. Because again, values don't emerge as a result of employees trying to live by them. So the reason why this aggravates me so much is because both employees and shareholders, everyone carries the burden. So what looks good on the surface, all this value nonsense, all this shiny, deeply resonating, heartwarming values, they sound good, right? It's so compelling to call for them and to agree on them and hold people accountable for them, and those who follow them are the good people and those who don't are the bad people. That's easy. But it causes more harm than good, because the real root cause of the problem isn't addressed. So let me wrap this up with a bit of a positive spin, because I recently, a few months ago, I got to know a general manager of a really large company, well, not that large, over 1,000 employees in Germany. And they have been doing exactly what I'm talking about here. They stopped trying to fix their culture, and they started systematically, thoroughly challenging all of their management practices in detail. And they got rid of performance management systems, 360 degrees feedbacks, time tracking, all these toxic things, and many more. They're called Beutelhauser. If you want to look them up, we'll put them in the show notes. And they are a normal company. They're not an outlier in terms of their business model, but they are obviously very much an outlier in terms of their management system. They're a pioneer, I would say. So I'll put them in the show notes and you can have a look at them. With that said, let's wrap it up. If you like this episode, if you like this content, give me a thumbs up, hit that like button as hard as you can. Subscribe to the channel, that helps me. Click that bell, that helps me even more. And start a conversation with your colleagues. Try to share this video and start a debate. Start a forum. Last week I asked, why have you not been sharing these videos? Or I just assumed you don't, right? Just for the sake of the argument. And I received an email from a participant in our academy, and she reacted to my question regarding this whole sharing of the content. And she said, I think my colleagues might not be ready for this. Now, I obviously don't know your colleagues, so I don't want you to take my word for it, but I have learned one thing in these last years. Everyone senses these things. Most of us just haven't had an opportunity or haven't been given the language and the space to talk about this stuff. But in over 10 years of doing this kind of work, I've had hardly any cases in which it hasn't been really beneficial to open the door to talk about what is going on behind the scenes and creating a forum in which these things can be reflected on. Almost in every case I experienced, first or second hand that's been reported to me, it's been a relief for everyone. And it really made a positive difference, because people can tell that this stuff is superficial when you call for values, but no one lives by them. And people are seeking an answer. They want to know why this stuff isn't working. So start small, create a forum, get engagement, get people talking about it. It makes a difference. So that's it for today. I will see you again next week, Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Greenwich time. Until then, take care, guys. Cheers.